Namaste everyone. So today we are going to talk about upcoming partial solar eclipse and new moon in Ashlesha Nakshatra. So we already had two eclipses this month, or rather the previous month. We had firstly partial solar eclipse in Punarvasu Nakshatra, where we were learning, how to ground our inspiration and our ideas and how to manifest them into the world. And then we had total lunar eclipse, which was very intense in Shravana Nakshatra, particularly in Abhijit portion, where we were learning how to actually, listen more to the world and how to get the feedback from the world, how to connect, with our environment. And now we are having very soon partial solar eclipse in Ashlesha Nakshatra, new moon in Ashlesha Nakshatra. So new moon is all about withdrawing our energy, and Ashlesha Nakshatra particularly is actually quite introverted Nakshatra too. So you see, like we were saying, several times during this series of videos about full moons and new moons, that always new moon happens in the 16th Nakshatra from last full moon. And full moon happens in the 16th Nakshatra from last new moon. So 16th Nakshatra in Vedic astrology is called Sangatika. And Sangatika Nakshatra is very often bringing a sort of solution, to the Nakshatra from which it starts. So in a sense, each new moon is a solution for previous full moon. And each full moon is a solution from previous new moon. So in this sense, this is like the entire cycle of evolution for us that is happening here. And this is why it's very interesting, this connection between Shravana and Ashlesha Nakshatra. Because Shravana is all about, hearing our environment, also getting actual feedback from other people, getting advice from other people. While Ashlesha Nakshatra is all about listening to your own self, about your own intuition, about what you feel and what you sense and staying true to that feeling. Because if you think about the snakes, the nagas, who are actually governing that nakshatra, so the ruling deities of the Ashlesha Nakshatra are the nagas, the serpents. They always walk, with their body very, very close to the earth, which is why they always sense the vibration of the earth very clearly. They always have this inner sensation, what is going to happen soon, which is why Ashlesha Nakshatra is very intuitive. It's all about sensing this vibration, right? If you see actually, how looks, all these amplitudes of the vibration, it again looks like a snake, like a spiral. So this is why Ashlesha Nakshatra is strongly connected to vibration. This is why it's also ruled by Mercury. Because Mercury is all about speech, the sacred mantras as well. Which is why it is said that one of the best ways to heal Ashlesha Nakshatra is to actually practice the mantras, turn the vibration into a beautiful vibration. Because if the vibrations which we are emanating is not pure, is not purified in some way, it can also manifest in a negative way. Which is why you can see in so many scriptures, that they sometimes, really vilify a little bit this nakshatra. They say that it can, make a native full of ill speech, The native can be very jealous, very suspicious, but these are really the shadow qualities of Ashlesha Nakshatra. This is when our vibration is not 100% pure, And this is unfortunately something, these shadow qualities, that they can manifest a little bit more during upcoming partial solar eclipse. Because whenever partial solar eclipse happens, a part of, the sun himself, right, who's the soul, who's the purity of the soul, is getting eclipsed. It's also new moon, right? So moon is not visible either. So these positive qualities in Ashlesha Nakshatra might be diminished at the moment, and we can already sense it now, in fact. And additionally, on top of that, it's not only that it's Sun, Moon and Rahu going to dwell in one house in the sign of Cancer, but there's also Mercury retrograde there. And Mercury himself, like we said, it's the ruler of Ashlesha Nakshatra. And Mercury being retrograde there, he can again give, some not easy twist to our speech. So we need to be really careful about our words in this time period, which sort of words we are using. So these are not, poisonous words, inflicting others with negativity. We need to also be a little bit more watchful about our thoughts too, so we don't wish ill to anybody. Because actually our words can be very powerful in this time period. So we really need to be very careful how we choose them. We need to be more careful about our thoughts as well. Because ultimately Ashlesha Nakshatra is not only about ourselves and our inner feeling and staying true to our inner feeling, but it's also about, being in harmony with our environment. Because snakes, almost in any mythology, they were said to be actually protectors of the environment. Protectors of the trees actually as well, So this is why Ashlesha Nakshatra is all about, having this very healthy relationship with our environment, not polluting our environment with our poisonous thoughts, with our poisonous words or actions, but being very responsible as to, which vibrations we actually spread into the world, This is why my Gurudev, he said so beautifully that you choose yourself the vibrations you want to live in. But this vibration does not affect only you, it actually has a very tangible impact on your environment. And this is something that you might actually experience a lot during this upcoming partial solar eclipse. You might actually really receive the experience and the lesson from Ashlesha Nakshatra of how your vibrations manifest in the world. So you will either experience it in a positive way, or you will experience some negative setback, some negative vibration which you have sent into the world previously might actually come back to you during this time period, so you can learn and so you can improve. Ashlesha Nakshatra is also called a clinging star. Ashlesha, literally means to embrace, to cling to something. Similarly like snakes, they always, cling to something in a way, That's why they are also symbols of attachment, in fact. And actually Ashlesha Nakshatra itself is one of the most attached nakshatras. Usually whenever any planet is there in Ashlesha Nakshatra, this planet can be very attached, either emotionally attached to something or like physically attached to something, Only Ketu in Ashlesha Nakshatra is not that attached planet, Ketu in Ashlesha Nakshatra in fact can produce a complete opposite, a complete detachment. It's also actually said that Ketu himself is actually born on Ashlesha Nakshatra, so it's a very, very symbolic thing in a way. And Ashlesha in itself, has lots of attachments usually. And for all of us now, when we are experiencing Mercury retrograde in Ashlesha Nakshatra, because whenever a planet is retrograde, right, and in this particular context, it's actually the ruler of this nakshatra, Mercury himself. So when the planet is retrograde there, then the planet is not, let's say, that willing, to let go of something. It's not that willing to move forward. It's not so willing to move the past behind and move ahead, And on top of that, we are also going to experience eclipse there, right? Partial solar eclipse. And this is a very specific situation in a way, especially when it happens, in Ashlesha Nakshatra with Mercury, the lord of that nakshatra, being there as well and being retrograde. Because eclipse always wants, to release something. If you think about the eclipse, always eclipse has like these two most important moments. First moment is when the eclipse, is touching, the orb of the planet, of sun or the moon, which is called sparsha, or the contact, the first grasping, But we often forget that the eclipse also has the moment called moksha, which is a release, actually. Which is actually when, this shadow leaves the planet, leaves the orb of the sun or the moon. So it's not that eclipses, only, bring this Rahu energy of grasping something, energy of contracting something, energy of overshadowing something. But eclipses, in fact, are bringing also the moksha aspect, They release something as well. I always like, to think of the eclipse if, for example, you would take your hand now, right? And you would just squeeze it very hard, for a moment. And for this exact moment when the hand is squeezed, you'll see that the hand will become a little bit more white, right? Because there's not that much blood flowing at the moment. But when you release it, then out of sudden your hand will become very soon completely red, because there will be more energy flowing now, right? So this is exactly what is happening in our energy body during eclipses. So some part of our body, energy body, some part within us is squeezed for a moment, by Rahu, but it's squeezed to be released again, So this is a very interesting thing when something like that is happening in Ashlesha Nakshatra, because we can literally experience, this sort of inner conflict, conflict between finally letting go of some very, prominent attachments in our life, and between actually moving forward in life. So many of us may experience during this time period that, literally we might be forced to let go of some of our attachments, to let go of some things towards which we are very, very attached, to which we tend to cling, too much in our lives. So now is really the time, for all of us not to cling to something that much, but to rather, from inside, decide to really move forward, and to let go of things, and simply to surrender, more. Because the more we'll try to hold on to something in this exact time period, the more we'll actually suffer, and the more this entire, process of transformation is going to be painful for us. And this is very, very interesting, if you think about Ashlesha Nakshatra, because Ashlesha is a watery star, right? A watery nakshatra. And its power is to cling onto something. So I always like, to think of the energy of Ashlesha Nakshatra as, when you see all these little sea creatures, these tiny, tiny ones which are on the sea, on the stones, and they try so hard, so that the waves actually don't move them. And that's literally the manifestation of Ashlesha Nakshatra energy. And if you think about it, it's very peculiar actually, because 22nd nakshatra from Ashlesha, okay, so 22nd nakshatra from the moon is always called Vinashika, star of destruction. And in reality, this 22nd star is very often revealing us, our deepest fears, or things we are ashamed of as well, but mostly, fears, that we have. And if you think about it, 22nd nakshatra from Ashlesha is Bharani. And what is the power of Bharani Nakshatra? It is to let go of things. Literally the power, the Shakti of Bharani Nakshatra is Apa Bharana Shakti. The power for the waters to take away some things. Which is why it's the star of endings. It's governed by Yamaraj, the god of death, the god of endings. So similarly, Ashlesha Nakshatra is the most afraid of endings. And Mercury being retrograde there doesn't want for the ending to come. It wants to still cling on things. It wants to protect its environment. So we can also be a little bit overprotective about our emotions or some things that are particularly, intimate or important for us. But it's really not the time to fight, because this eclipse tries to inspire us that we actually let go more, that we don't stay too attached. And really, whenever you sense that something like that is coming into your life, because the eclipse is going to happen in few days, so many of us may already experience, some result of this eclipse happening very soon. Really, rather let go. Don't try to fight, don't try to be overly protective for your environment, for your peace of mind, for your emotions, anything. Don't try to cling, onto the past. Don't try to cling onto the old habits, but rather open up for something new. Use this powerful energy of eclipse, rather not to, hold onto things and cling to things, but rather to release, open up more. And allow yourself, the time for this transformation to happen. Which is why, if I could give you any sort of advice during this exact time period, stay as much time as possible in silence, If you have a choice to say something not so pleasant and to stay silent, rather stay silent during this exact time period. Because all of us might tend to have, a little bit too much of poison in our own words during this time. So rather to stay silent. Stay also in meditation, and meditate a lot, and, just find this time for yourself, for your own transformation, so you can, really allow yourself for the transformation to happen, and allow yourself to be vulnerable as well. Because you see, when snakes, they are changing their skin, they are the most vulnerable. And you can literally, say that during this time period, when the eclipse is going to happen in Ashlesha Nakshatra, this is literally, this snake changing its skin. This is literally what we are all going to experience. But also when snakes are changing its skin, don't forget about it, that very often, their eyes are actually completely white. They don't see clearly. Also during eclipses, we usually don't see that clearly. So do not make any decisions, yet. Just allow for the transformation to happen, allow yourself to let go of the past completely, and to open up yourself for something new. So that was just, very short video from me on upcoming partial solar eclipse in Ashlesha Nakshatra and new moon. And there's really definitely, so much more to say about that. And this eclipse will, mean something else for every person, depending which nakshatra it's happening for you, and also depending on which house it's happening for you, from Lagna and from the moon. But this is like some general thing, that this eclipse is really more about releasing and allowing yourself, to let go of some attachments from the past. So, thank you so much for watching, and namaste.